Hello, welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know, brought to you by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. And we are coming to you from the Workers Credit Union studios here at FATV. My name is Andrew Couture. I will be your host. And with me, my co-host, as always, Mary Lotze. How are you doing this evening,
I'm doing
Mary?
very well, Andrew.
And tonight we have a very, very special guest, no stranger to the Your Right to Know studios, and also a very, very good friend of the Fitchburg Republican City Committee, Mr. James J. McMahon. How you doing?
Good. Good, Andrew. Good, Mary. Good to be with you today. Looking to talk about the issues that are facing Fitchburg and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so let's get on with it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Fire away.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm Attorney James McMahon. I live in the town of Bourne. I have a law practice there. I've been a lawyer for 35 years. Prior to being an attorney, I was in law enforcement, and I've also was in business. So I've been a policeman, and I've worked in large organizations in management. Scott Taylor Oil Company, Cape Cod Bank and Trust, Cape Cod Hospital, where we've had several thousand employees. So I've got business background. I've got my Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from UMass, and I got my law degree from Suffolk University in Boston. So I've had experience in dealing in management in large corporations, and I've been in the practice of law for 35 years. In every level of court, Andrew, you would know what that means, every level of court, state and federal, in Massachusetts. And also I've had, I've had thousands of cases and thousands of clients. And I've also been before boards, federal boards, state boards, and municipal boards and commissions. So I've had a lot of fun in the last 35 years, and moving on, running for Attorney General. As you know, this is my second time. I ran in 2018 against Maura Healey, and I came in second. That's not going to happen again. I've got 3 opponents on the other side, so I'm actually waiting for September 6th primary to see who I'm going to face on the other side.
Well, first of all, the seat of Attorney General, it's an open seat, because Maura Healey, the current Attorney General, is leaving the position to run for governor.
She is. She's been a terrible Attorney General for the last 8 years, and she'll make even a worse governor.
Well, I've sued her.
Yep.
And
Yep.
one.
And one.
And one, yep,
Yep.
yep. As a matter of fact, kudos to you. You had to do it, you did it, and you did it for a good cause, Second Amendment, upholding the Second Amendment rights, and you were successful. Now, she said during the pandemic that gun stores and gun shops need to be closed because police officers need to be protected. Now, I don't get the connection, except the obvious, what she's trying to say. If law-abiding citizens have access to firearms, I guess she's trying to say that police officers are in trouble.
Yeah.
When it's quite the opposite. We all know it, and you brought it to to a sound court, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, and you were correct, and they found that you were correct, and they ruled that the government cannot infringe on the Second Amendment. Kudos to you, and also to the court for ruling correctly.
I agree with you, but one thing in that, when we're talking about that case, and of course we could take up the entire program taking up that case,
right?
But one thing that really enraged me is she said that gun stores have to be shut, but abortion clinics have to stay open.
I know, it's crazy. But you know something? This is what happens when you have people in these positions like the Attorney General who are there and they have a political agenda. In this case with Maura Healey, it's an extreme left-wing progressive political agenda. And when you have somebody like that in these positions, this is the result you get.
Well, look at what happened during the 2020 riots. And I'm not going to say they were peaceful protesters. They were rioters. Okay.
Absolutely.
And what did she say? She said, burning these cities. Well, guess what? That's how forests grow.
Okay. So obviously, I have the correct exact quote. It says, "Yes, this is Maura Healey's response, by the way. people were upset because they saw on local television, they saw Boston and other cities near you. I don't know how Fitchburg fared, but Brockton didn't fare too well. New Bedford didn't fare too well. Worcester only had a few minor issues, but downtown Boston was terrible. We had police cruisers that were burning. We had cops that were shot at. And by the way, this was in May, and yet these Antifa thugs, these George Soros-funded Antifa thugs, had frozen water bottles, which means they were putting them out there rather right in the midst of this. They were getting these things fed to them. They were staging bricks and frozen water bottles. And the Boston police were told not to wear riot gear because it would be too intimidating. And that's when she said, they asked her about it, she goes, yes, I know American cities are burning, but that's how forests grow. Well, guess what, Maura? That's not how cities grow. That's not how communities grow. No. That's not how businesses grow. So we need an attorney general who is not going to be so politically active that she would literally encourage these Antifa thugs to commit these crimes in our cities. So people were asking me, what would you have done about it? What would you have done any differently? And I say, well, first of all, I would have been prepared for them. We all know this was going to happen. Now, I don't know why Boston is rioting, because no one died in police custody in Boston, Massachusetts, or New England for that matter, in several generations. No one's died in police custody. So why is it that something happened to George Floyd 1,500 miles away in Minneapolis, and all of a sudden we got riots right here in Massachusetts? But be that as it may, those Antifa, George Soros funded Antifa thugs are here in Boston causing this problem. So this is what would I have done differently? Well, I would have certainly had the Boston police in riot gear. I would have had the state police surrounding and have the Boston police pushing the rioters toward the state police, because Boston, land-wise, is a small city. So what you'd be pushing them is into either Chestnut Hill area, either Brookline, or somewhere around there, and you'd have the state police, which have jurisdiction all over the place, grabbing these guys and arresting them. Because look, my position is this: if Antifa wants to come to Massachusetts and spend a little time, I'm okay with that. They can come spend 3 to 5.
Well, so then let me ask you that question. We have lawlessness happening in the streets during the riots of a couple of years ago, but it's only gotten worse now. We may not have the same riot behavior, but we do have out-of-control lawlessness in our streets, much like the Wild West. So as the chief law enforcement officer in Massachusetts, we know Maura Healey does nothing. What would you do?
Well, you know something, your question, it's a comprehensive question, and it goes like this. Maura Healey has no solution for that. She's a would-be governor that has no solution to the problems that society, our citizens, our cities are facing, and our minority community leaders are also facing. Maura Healey is one of those that stand along with Liz Warren, stands along with Shannon Liz Riordan, who's also running for Attorney General on the Democratic side, Andrea Campbell, who's also running, and Quentin Palfrey, who's also running on that side. They all want to defund the police. And yet community leaders, minority community leaders, are asking for more law enforcement, not less. So how does if you're going to defund the police, how does that help our communities? The answer is it doesn't help them at all. It makes the problem worse. Now here's the problem with the current Attorney General. Maura Healey is treating Massachusetts as if we're already a sanctuary state. Because as you know, she likes to decree things. Her enforcement notice against scary guns.
2016.
Right? Yep. She says, my subjects are not going to be allowed to possess scary guns. Now, I've always said, if you have a scary gun and somebody breaks into your front door and they see this scary gun, you may not have to shoot it because they'll realize they got the wrong address. But nonetheless, she's treating this like Massachusetts, like it's a sanctuary city. So she doesn't want to deal with ICE and any of the other federal agencies. It's gotten so bad that several years ago, the feds raided an area in Lawrence. It was all fed. There was no state troopers involved, no local cops. In fact, the only time the local cops knew something was happening was when the raid was underway. They dropped a dime and said, hey, just to let you know if there's you hear any noise going on, that's us, we're making a raid. They got enough fentanyl to kill half the residents in Massachusetts. 3 weeks later, they did another raid in Drake, and they got the other half to kill the rest of Massachusetts. That's how much fentanyl is on the streets in Massachusetts. So how many gangs has Maura Healey gone after and successfully prosecuted? The answer is the same amount of wins she's had against Trump.
None.
Absolutely none.
She sued
I
Trump 100 times.
I was going to say, may I take a guess? None.
Yeah, take a guess, and it's none. She sued Trump 100 times, nothing. How many gangs? By the way, how many state troopers did she prosecute because of the scandal in Troop E? None. That was Andrew Lelling who did all the heavy lifting there. That's the feds. So she doesn't deal with the feds. What I would do as the next Attorney General, I will obviously cooperate with the feds. I want to stop that stuff as we know it's coming across the border. If it's coming across from New York, if it's coming across through Connecticut, I want to grab them as it's coming over. Now, DEA knows some of the stuff that's coming in here. All we have to do is say, we're going to be ready to help you. We will supplement some manpower here, and together we'll dry up the source, which brings me to the opiate crisis here in Massachusetts. When Maura Healey was first in the DA's office, in the AG's office back in 2010, we had 500 deaths a year from opiate addiction. We now have 2,500 deaths a year. So why a fivefold increase in that? Because we're not doing anything about it. We do not have an effective policy in Massachusetts to deal with the opiate crisis. So what is an effective plan? What do you got to do? Well, it's threefold. You have to have effective rehabilitation. You got to keep people from going in a revolving door. I know people who have gone 20 and 30 times through a government rehabilitation program and not have their problem resolved. And yet, private pay rehabilitation programs have an 87% cure rate. 87%. That's as close to 100% as you can get. Yeah. So if the private pay programs, one time through, can deliver, then the government programs have to somehow follow the private pay programs as an example.
The best practice.
The best practice, so they go through one time. So the whole idea is to get the customers, if you will, out of the system. Then we have to dry up the source. Just like I mentioned, we got to work with our federal law enforcement partners, dry up the source of heroin and fentanyl that's coming into the state. So once you dry up the source and you've got effective rehabilitation, the last thing you need is strong and aggressive prosecution. Because you got to make it, and these people need to know when they come into the state and they want to ply their trade of selling this poison to our inhabitants, they got to know they do that at an extreme risk. That, in other words, you do that and we grab you, you're going to go away for a long time. What you do when you use extreme prosecution on these people, you literally drive them out of Massachusetts. They will go to another state that's more lenient and tolerant of their trade. Fine with me. We'll do it one way or the other. Either put them in jail or chase them out of the state, and they'll go somewhere else where it's easier for them to do business. We will protect our citizens. This is how you have effective public safety. Maura Healey's not doing that.
Now, obviously, we have a flood of this poison coming in because the current administration in the White House has just opened the floodgates to anybody who wants to come over. And it's not just, Mexicans, it's not Hispanics.
It's not children
It's
and
not
mothers.
children anymore. You have full, adults, adult males coming over, going over the Rio Grande River, coming into this country.
And do you know when they get over here, do you know where they're coming? Right here to Massachusetts
the- yep.
to
So
get their
lenient.
license.
Yep.
To get their driver's license.
Well, let's see. They get in their health insurance, they get their driver's license, they get cash assistance.
And once they get their driver's license, which we've passed the law, then they will get the right to vote. No stop.
Isn't that crazy? And I like what Howie Carr says. That, he says, the next time I get in trouble, I don't want any special treatment. I just want to be treated like an illegal alien.
Yeah.
Now, what would you do to try to close the borders? Would you sue the current president?
Well, I'll tell you what. There's already lawsuits against Biden because of his gross negligence in office. And I would certainly have Massachusetts join those lawsuits. How effective will they be? We know from past practice with the Biden administration, they ignore court orders. As a matter of fact, they have said, we suspected it was against the law, but we knew that this is on another issue, but they said, but we knew it would take about 90 days for them to get through the court system. So we were going to use that 90-day period to achieve our ends. In other words, to them, the end justifies the means, whether it's done through lawlessness or otherwise. We have an issue with that, but does anybody really believe that Biden's going to be in there more than 2 more years?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I think it's even the
I
Democrats.
think he's hanging on by a straw.
I was going
as
to
it
say,
is.
I'm not sure he's going to finish these two
He
for
may-
no other reason than his own physical and
Yeah,
emotional
he
health.
may not even make it to then. But whoever runs in 2 years from now from president, it's pretty much assured that we're going to have an ally. And so we'll have an ally in Washington, and just perhaps we can't save the nation from as you said, Andrew, the flood of fentanyl and carfentanil that's coming in. It's coming in at atrocious rates, and it's deadly stuff.
And I've actually read articles recently where it's being shaped like candy. Like, for children to be interested in it. And we all know it's coming from China.
Yes.
It's being, coming from China, and it's being brought over the border by, all the illegal immigrants that are coming through.
The cartels.
The cartels,
that are
the
human
mules,
trafficking
you name it.
as well as the...
But it's basically China. They tried to kill us in 2020 with the pandemic. They're just continuing their quest for world domination.
And they got their distribution through the gangs. So every city is afflicted by gangs and gang violence and gang drug trafficking. And what we need to do is start getting serious with that. Now, I've got some opponents, my opponents on the other side, who are saying that, well, we can't just prosecute our way out of the problem. So their alternative is
Nothing.
I guess to let it keep going.
Yeah.
And the point is, we can clean it up. There has been times when cities have gone and just been overrun by gang violence and just by just terrible people doing terrible things to citizens. And it happened in New York City about 20 years ago when David Dickens was the mayor there. And then Rudy Giuliani came in and said, we are going to enforce all quality of life crimes. And that's where it starts. When you have these woke district attorneys who say there's a whole host of crimes, categories of crimes that we're not going to prosecute, it gets crazy. But I have a solution to that. The Attorney General's office can preempt any prosecution anywhere in the state, at any stage, at any time. And when Rachel Rollins first became the district attorney of Suffolk County back 4 years ago, she had this wokeness where she said there's about 15 crimes that she will not prosecute. One was assault and battery on a police officer, resisting arrest, what she called low-level crime, drug dealing. And I sent out on social media an open letter to the Boston Police Commissioner and the police chiefs of Winthrop, Chelsea, and Revere. That's all Suffolk County. And I said, if your officers make arrests on these types of crimes, and the district attorney will not prosecute, I will send assistant attorney generals down to the district court, and we will prosecute those crimes from start to finish. That's the first thing I'll do. The second thing I'll do is lead the recall to take that DA out, take that prosecutor out on a recall petition. And the reason why we will do that is, first of all, you got these prosecutors who are running for the job and they say, vote for me and I won't do the job. Is that nutty? Okay. We don't need to be like Chicago with Kim Foxx. We don't need to be like LA with Gus Own. We don't need to be like San Francisco when they're with just complete, absolute crime-ridden cities, so that they might as well close the city down. How do businesses thrive that way? They don't.
They don't.
How do communities thrive? They don't. We're going to clean up, and we're going to be aggressive about it.
Now, you mentioned something, Jay, in regards to illegals getting licenses.
Yeah, driver's licenses.
Now, we have just finished a 10-week stint of collecting signatures.
Yes.
Can you give us do you have any updates for us?
I do. I absolutely am proud to be a Republican this time around, for sure. That was led by the Mass GOP, by Jim Lyons, our chairman. And Republicans rallied around that. And they did this petition because they understand that this petition is to repeal the law that gives illegal aliens driver's licenses in Massachusetts. It was a crazy law to begin with. It ignored public safety. It ignored all the ramifications. It was passed by liberal elitists who obviously didn't look to the second step to see what would happen, that Massachusetts would become the magnet, and all these people would be coming here to get driver's licenses so that they can traffic and distribute their trade, their drug trade and drug trafficking from Massachusetts throughout the rest of the nation. It was the worst law to see the light of day, and I applaud all the Republicans that worked hard and all the independents that joined, that worked hard to get this on the ballot, this initiative, to get it on the ballot, and it will be certified on the ballot.
I would just like to let our viewers know in regard to this is that it really was a nonpartisan issue.
Right.
That we had Democrats coming up and expressing their disgust with this having been made law and wanting to have it repealed, but also that in this area, our current state representative, Michael Kuchmarek, our current state senator, John Cronin, all supported this. And therefore, they have choices in this upcoming election that we want them to all know about.
Not only did they vote for it, but they voted to overturn the veto.
Governor Baker's veto, yes, which is a double down.
Yeah,
so
they doubled down on their stupidity.
And it was the bill was also the referendum petition was also supported by our own Dean Tran. He was one of the co-sponsors of the bill. So go Dean, go Aaron Packard, and go Ken Hoyt. Excuse me, I didn't want to jump in there, but we are running out of time. So closing words.
Well, this is what I would say to the citizens of Fitchburg and Worcester County and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have a real choice here this time. We have liberal extremists who want to go soft on crime, who are really not interested in this becoming a prosecutorial office, but more of a social worker office. Some of them would say that we should defund the police and divert some of the money into social work. I have nothing against social workers. I think they do a fine job, but who are we to tell the Department of Mental Health what they should be doing? If they need more social workers, they know how to lobby the legislature to get more funds. For me, when I have minority community leaders saying they need more police, not less police, because they know their neighborhoods are crime-ridden, I say I back the blue. I say we need more allocations of law enforcement resources in these neighborhoods because minorities deserve the same level of public safety that everybody else in the Commonwealth enjoy. So I'm asking you, vote for me, Attorney Jay McMahon, as your next Attorney General. You can go to my website at attorneyjaymcmahon.com or on my Facebook page at Attorney Jay McMahon. And I thank you guys for having me here.
We thank you so much for joining us. And as we leave you tonight, we'd like you to know that your Fitchburg Republican City Committee is your only organization in the city that holds dear your constitutional rights and your grassroots beliefs in the Constitution and your rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We encourage you to join us. Why? Because to us, GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people, and because we always stand for your freedom. We are we the people. Thank you and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all use values that preserves our rights and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights and goes forth in power